Hello, my little zebras. I want to talk today about why I cue so much with the pelvic floor and with breathing for all of the things that we do. I'm definitely showing my bias here as a pelvic floor therapist, but I can guarantee you it is important and it helps us get more core stability, especially in our spines. It just helps everything click in a little bit better. So I can't not do it. We're going to get rolling. If you are not a vulva owner, heads up, I'm going to be showing a vagina model here. So hang with me. Okay, so our pelvis houses our pelvic organs. We have the bladder in the front, uterus in the middle if you have one, and then the rectum in the back. So as a pelvic floor therapist, one, I address all of these symptoms. Stay tuned, we're going to talk about pelvic organ prolapse in a second. Now, the pelvic floor is comprised of three main layers of muscles. We have 22 to 24 muscles down here. But going through the groups, superficially, again, this is the front, this is the back. We have the external anal sphincter right here, circular muscle. Circular muscle helps to open and close the anus, hopefully when we want it to. We have the vaginal opening right here and the urethral opening right here. That's where we pee from. What we can't see in this model is that there's also a little sphincter circular muscle there that helps to open and close, hopefully when we want it to. For those that do not own vulvas and maybe own a penis, we don't have the vagina part and the urethra is much longer, okay? Now we have some muscular support along the pubic rim right here. We have some muscular support around that vaginal opening, as well as some glands right there for vulva owners. And then we have some muscular support across the middle here. These muscles all have a squeeze function. So when people say, oh, you're having pelvic issues, just do Kegels. It's like stopping the flow of urine. One, Kegels are not always the answer, and a lot of times they can make the problem worse. We'll get to that in a second. Two, stopping the flow of urine, we can accomplish with these outer superficial muscles, but that's not really the whole story of what a pelvic floor or contraction or a Kegel is. Now we have a second layer of muscles. You can kind of see right here. Those muscle fibers cross this whole triangular area, and those muscle fibers go left and right. Those muscle fibers open and close the urethra kind of like a squeezy coin purse. So you squeeze it and it opens, you let go and it draws taut shut. That's kind of how those muscles act. In penis owners, this organization is similar but different. We'll just keep that in summation right there, since I don't have a male model here. When we get to the inside, we've got these big honkin' muscles. These muscles act like a supportive sling or hammock to those organs. They do a lifting function. So a full pelvic floor muscle contraction or a Kegel, they are the same, is a squeeze and a lift. So I usually say it's like trying to pull a marble up inside your vagina or inside your rectum because it paints a picture, right? So these muscles are under our conscious control as well as our unconscious control. Conscious control is, I kind of have to pee right now, but that would be really bad press if I peed my pants right now. So I will wait until I am done filming, then I will go pee over the toilet, hopefully, right? These muscles are also under our unconscious control, which is a lot of what I deal with as a pelvic floor physical therapist with my patients and my clients. That means that these muscles could potentially be holding a lot of tension or holding a clench without us necessarily realizing it. So, as a pelvic floor therapist, I very rarely, if ever at all, am saying, oh, you're leaking, just do Kegels. Because if these muscles are tight, we don't want to further tighten a tight muscle group. That's like doing bicep curls up here. Yes, I can carry a lot of groceries in, but I can't reach to put the milk away. These are muscles. We want them to act like any other muscles or joints in the body. We want them to have full length and range of motion, as well as strength and coordination. So that's why Kegels are not always the answer, and also why they can make things worse. let's say you are someone who is leaking and you're doing Kegels and it doesn't feel like it's getting better at all, it could just be that those muscles are too tight. Because if those muscles are tight, they're not going to function in their whole range of motion. It's like if I asked you to do a pull-up from right here with T-Rex arms, you can't really move anywhere. Same idea with these muscles that help to control the flow of urine or gas or stool, so on and so forth. Okay? So these muscles also move as we breathe, and they help to activate our core. They are, in fact, the floor of our core. Most of us think about the core like six-pack abs. These guys are right down here, not the core. They are there to look pretty in a very few select lucky people, right? Not the core, somewhat functional. I care about them a little bit post-pregnancy or post-weight loss when there's a diastasis rectus. But other than that, I usually don't focus on those muscles a whole lot. You go deeper to the six-pack abs or the rectus abdominis, and you have two layers of obliques. Those muscle fibers run on diagonals opposite each other, okay? They help with some flexion and rotation, some stabilization. They help, but still not the core. The deepest abdominal muscle layer is the transversus abdominis. Those muscle fibers wrap around us like a corset, okay? And they sort of, in part, help to draw the belly button in towards the spine. We're going to get to that in a second too. So if we think about the core like a soda can or a pop can if you're in the Midwest, the transversus abdominis is the main part of that can that you're holding on to. The top part is your breathing diaphragm, helps you to breathe, and the bottom part is your pelvic floor. We also have some itty-bitty spinal muscles called multifidi. They go up and down our spine 1 to 2 segments at a time. They're about yay big. They help with a little bit of extension and a little bit of rotation, but mostly stabilization. We tend to not use those muscles very effectively, and we like to use those big ropey muscles on either side of our spine a good chunk of the time. And then we wonder why we get back injuries, because we're not distributing the load very well. So this whole core system is a pressurized system, so we want to manage our pressure. Additionally, the pelvic floor muscles are synergists, meaning they work together with your transversus abdominis. So when I am cueing core activation, I want you to start it from below, contracting the pelvic floor and then knitting those abs together. Okay, let's get back to the belly button and towards the spine cue. This cue is admittedly what I learned to use in PT school. For Joe Schmo off the street that's never used his abdominals a day in his life, I will still use this cue. But for most of us, I think this does a really strong disservice, because when we think about drawing our belly button in towards our spine, we tend to use our external obliques a little bit more. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So if I'm here and I let my belly flop out, if I think about drawing my belly button in towards my spine, I tend to grip on these upper abs. So I go like that. But you can see I still have a little bit of that pooch right there, right? These lower abs, they're not kicking on at all. It is entirely up here. I'm drawing my ribs down and I'm anchoring them there. This is what Julie Wiebe calls the hourglass syndrome, because it cinches in at the top part of your waist, but you can't get anything lower to kick in. But if I think about tightening my abdominals, starting with my pelvic floor, and I contract, so I pick up a marble, and then I knit my lower abs together, look at how flat that gets right there, right? Now these lower abs are kicking on. Fantastic. And I'm not just gripping up here. So my cueing is always related to contracting the pelvic floor, and we're thinking about knitting these lower abs together. That will help to get better distribution of those abdominals, so you're not just using external obliques up here. For years, I thought I was so strong because I could hold a plank for 10 minutes if you told me to. Would it look good? Not at all. Not the point. But I was just gripping it and ripping it right here. That's not great. I mean, it's fine for strengthening external obliques, but I couldn't turn on my lower abs to save my life. So a few years back, more or less at the beginning of the pandemic, I made it a new project. I'm not going to do any exercises unless I could control it with my pelvic floor and my lower abs. For reference, my planks then turned into 8-second planks from 10 minutes. Planks are not my favorite exercise. They get really boring for me, but that gives you a good frame of reference of how much that changed my routine when I changed my intention. So all of the exercises throughout this video series is going to be focused with cueing the pelvic floor and into the lower abs. Now, just like I said, it's not great to just grip onto everything and hold on to it. Same idea with the pelvic floor and with the abs. I want you to be able to breathe deep into the abs so that they expand, pelvic floor drops, and then you contract. You are not just trying to keep everything tight all the time. That can lead to pelvic floor and abdominal spasms. Not fantastic. So please follow your breath and follow my cues as we go through. Okay, let's talk about the breathing side of things because this matters a ton. Our breathing diaphragm is a big dome muscle at the base of our ribs. When it contracts, it descends down and it spreads out. It's like opening an umbrella in 360 degrees. Okay? We do have a tendency to say it's belly breathing. This might be the case if you were laying flat on your back and your back is fixed. But if you're standing upright or depending on the pose, you are also expanding into your lower ribs. You're breathing into your back. You're expanding out like a barrel expanding or like an umbrella expanding. Okay? When we inhale down deep, this helps to draw air into our lungs, more specifically the base of our lungs, which is good. Our lungs are kind of triangular shaped. So if we're going to the base of the lungs, we get more surface area, better air exchange. This is good. Okay? But as modern humans, especially if you're in America, we're always thinking about trying to grip it and rip it and suck everything in and just hold it tight as possible to look as skinny as possible. When we do that, we anchor our ribs down, our rib cage cannot expand, our diaphragm can't move, and we do all of our breathing with our upper chest and neck muscles. This is not great. It's shallower breathing. It overutilizes our neck muscles, and then we get neck pain and headaches. I wonder why that happens, right? Not fantastic. Additionally, when we shallow breathe, it stimulates cortisol, which is a stress hormone. We are meant to have this some of the times, but not all of the time. So it's not just, oh, I'm stressed out and I'm shallow breathing. It's now I'm shallow breathing and I'm feeling more anxious. Versus when we breathe with our diaphragm, it helps to stimulate the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve helps to put our body into a calming rest, digest, relaxation mode. So overall, breathe with the diaphragm is the short of that story. Okay, so you're always thinking about breathing down rather than breathing up. Now, from the pelvic floor standpoint of things, it also helps to breathe with the diaphragm. And from the abdominal side of things, it helps to breathe with the diaphragm. Because when we inhale and that breathing diaphragm goes down, our pelvic floor naturally goes down a little bit to match the pressure. Likewise, when we exhale, breathing diaphragm goes up, pelvic floor goes up. So they work together like pistons in the car to manage pressure in the abdomen. Okay? This is why we always exhale with the exertion or whatever the harder part of the exercise is whenever we want that stability, because then the pelvic floor is better able to be engaged and the abs are better able to be engaged. Now, how we breathe makes a difference with these exercises too, because let's say I'm having a bowel movement on the toilet. We want to exhale then, but it's more of a forceful exhale, like we're blowing up a pool toy, right? It's trying to push out. When we push out forcefully or we exhale forcefully, that puts more pressure down on our pelvic floor. But if we want it to engage, we think about blowing out gently, like we're trying to bend the flame of a candle, or blow it out gently without blasting the wax everywhere. So it's always a gentle as you contract your pelvic floor and you knit those abs together. Okay? This takes a little bit of practice. Hang with me. After a while, it will start to become more natural. I try my best to pace everything out really well through these exercises, and I try not to talk too fast, even though I get really excited. But I always do want to cue the breathing, the pelvic floor, and the abs, because then it's going to start to click in a little bit better, and then you do get more bang for your buck with the exercises. Okay, one last thing. I want to talk about pelvic organ prolapse, because I know that folks with EDS and joint hypermobility and connective tissue issues, we do have a tendency for pelvic organ prolapse. That could be its entire video series of what I work on with folks with this. But I just also want to make a point of why we're doing the exercises the way we are, so that we don't make pelvic organ prolapse worse. Okay, so to help me out, I've got a nice squishy ball here, right? This ball is to simulate an organ. Pick one. Bladder, uterus, rectum, organs that are falling down further beyond. Sometimes our small intestine can fall into the pouch between the rectum and the uterus. More often than not, it's the bladder, right? When we hold our breath, it squishes down on the organs, okay? For folks that have vulvas and vaginas, the organ will then go to the path of least resistance, right? Which is the vaginal canal. We can also have rectal prolapse. I can get really graphic with all of it. I'm going to spare you on this one, but I want to talk about the breathing side of things. So breathing diaphragm is up top. It is not this close, but hang with me. It's much up here, okay? So pelvic floor is at the bottom, breathing diaphragm is up top. If our pelvic floor is gripping it and it's not moving at all, but we try to take a deep breath or we hold our breath, it will squish in on that organ, okay? And then it falls into the path of least resistance. But if we are breathing and we are coordinating our breath with our pelvic floor and our abdomen, then when we inhale and the breathing diaphragm goes down and the pelvic floor goes down, then we exhale, breathing diaphragm goes up and pelvic floor goes up, that ball or your organs never get squished, so they don't get pushed down. This will strain the fascia less, which is the connective tissue that suspends those organs. And it will also just feel less icky down there. If you already have some pelvic organ prolapse, this is how we help to manage it. There's a lot that goes into it, but this is a big piece of it. We want to manage our pressure so that we aren't keeping a lot of force down on those organs. Now, if you are having pelvic floor issues and you're noticing a lot of pelvic organ prolapse, please see a pelvic floor physical therapist or reach out to me and we'll chat and we'll find something that works for you. But in the meantime, this is why we are breathing the way we are with these core stabilization exercises. It makes a huge difference. That being said, I have now talked for quite an extended period of time. You might have listened through a third of it. Come back, revisit as needed. I want you to be successful with these exercises, so please pay attention to your breath as best you can. Stay strong and bendy, zebras.